Your Excellency, this is a surprise. Welcome.
What do you mean we have no money? I need at least $1 million for intelligence mission immediately.
Everybody I can say knew about Iddi Amin.
The more he felt insecure, the more ruthless he became.
To the world, Iddi Amin is the embodiment of all that's dark and almost animal-like that came out of Africa.
He used to kill people, that man. Whoever could come against him, he would just kill.
Water sports on the River Nile near Bujagali in southeastern Uganda. The speed and power of these rapids attract tourists from around the world. But 40 years ago, this stretch of water was known for a very different reason. The country was then ruled by President Iddi Amin.
When I was a child, walking down the Nile was really scary, because you feared that anytime a dead body would pop up. And often, sometimes when you would walk down the river, you'd come across a body riddled with bullets. As I grew up, I also got to learn Bujagali was a place where people who had been killed by Amin were dumped. Truckloads would come there and offload their corpses into the river. It was a good place probably to dump the bodies, because the bodies would be swept away and probably crushed on those stones and never recognized.
I will well and truly exercise.
Iddi Amin seized power of Uganda in a military coup in 1971. He was head of the army and in his mid-40s.
So help me God.
Cheering crowds poured out to greet the new leader.
It's difficult to say this now, but yes, we were very, very happy. You know, I think like all young people, you were looking for change. I was at the university then. There were celebrations all over the university, and he came around in a jeep, an open jeep, and you know, we would wave from our hostel. So yes, the euphoria that was there at that time was that hopefully it was bringing a positive change.
But Iddi Amin was to become one of the 20th century's most infamous leaders. Some 300,000 people are said to have been killed during his 8-year rule.
To the world, Iddi Amin is the embodiment of all that's dark and almost animal-like that came out of Africa. Because the stories about Amin of he, variously drinking human blood, he, keeping the heads of his victims in fridges. So those horrific images in the 1970s reminded people of the worst of Nazi Germany and of all that evil stands for: dark, mysterious, menacing, primitive, animal-like.
Yet at the outset, the towering 6'4" Amin, who liked to be called Big Daddy, was in the spotlight for very different reasons.
What I think people found fascinating was this very spontaneous person. The man who would be out there, would mix with the crowd, would join them in dancing or in any celebration. He was someone who connected so much with the common man.
He was a man of the people. He was friendly, he was fun. He could sing, he could play the organ. He was very charismatic. He is what you call a character. So yes, there were two sides to the man.
Iddi Amin gained power after toppling Uganda's first post-independence president, Milton Obote, under whom the country had become a one-party state. The two men had been allies, but were now deadly enemies. They also came from different ethnic groups, Amin was a Kakwa, while Obote drew his support from the Langi and Acholi peoples.
The members of the Uganda Army and Air Force decided to take over from the civilian role because of the last arrangement which were made by the Dr. Apollo Milton Obote to disarm the whole tribe of Uganda except his own tribe Langi and Acholi.
From the outset, Iddi Amin grabbed the attention of the Western media.
He spoke English rather badly, and therefore he came out as something of a comic, and the British papers made quite a lot out of that. In reality, he was very, very clever.
He seemed to be sensible, he seemed to be intelligent, and he was able, therefore, to function in spite of the lack of education, the obvious lack of education.
Iddi Amin did indeed lack a formal education. Born in northern Uganda in the mid-1920s, he barely went to school.
He grew up with almost nothing. Luxury was not part of his life. It was always hardship, always trying to fight to survive. He was raised up mainly by his mother, my grandmother. She was also just, very tough, big woman, just like my father somehow.
Like many poor Ugandan boys seeking an escape from poverty, Iddi Amin got a job with the British colonial army.
He was a cook in the army, and when they were looking for more people, for more, boots, that's when he got a chance to actually join the real army. That's around the World War time, 1940s.
He excelled in the military. He was a very good soldier, and he served the commanders, I believe, as best he could, although he had some excesses where they wanted to discipline him.
They just kept promoting him because he was dedicated to the job. He was outstanding. And so he had this, maybe some would call it a meteoric rise in the army.
It was while in the army that the athletic Amin enjoyed his first taste of fame. He was Uganda's light heavyweight boxing champion for more than 9 years and remained a keen swimmer throughout his life. Just as impressive was his appetite for women. Polygamy is legal in Uganda, and he had at least 5 wives, countless girlfriends, and is known to have fathered more than 40 children. They lived as an extended family at State House in the Ugandan capital, Kampala.
It was fun with my dad. All the time it was fun. Though he was also a very down-to-earth person who wanted to make sure that we are not spoiled kids. In school, he made sure we were treated just the same as all the other kids.
Although celebrations had greeted Amin's coup, a year later there was a challenge to his leadership. Milton Obote had by now fled to neighbouring Tanzania, where a number of his supporters had joined him. In early 1972, word reached Amin that they were on the move.
The Tanzanian troops are preparing with modern Chinese arms requested by Dr. Apollo Milton Obote to come and attack Uganda. This is the message which I received this morning.
Though the attempt was crushed, Amin now harboured a growing concern that Obote would again try to regain power. By now, his lack of education and political inexperience were also becoming all too apparent.
He just didn't have the capacity. He didn't know how to do it because he did not understand what they were doing. He did not understand the budget for a country. He had no idea what that was about. Foreign affairs, It really was the lack of education. He was doing the best he could from his point of view. And that was not the best from other people's point of view.
In 1972, Amin, a self-proclaimed nationalist, unveiled plans for an economic war on what he called the domination of Uganda by foreigners.
This is the paper, August 17, all Asians must go.
Vali Jamal's parents were among around 80,000 Asians then living in Uganda. Amin ordered them all to get out. At the time, Asians made up just 1% of Uganda's population, but controlled 2/3 of the non-food economy.
Of course, we had a very, very privileged life. It was a life in which the gap between Asians and Africans was immense.
The Asians, many of whom held British passports, were given 90 days to leave and allowed to take with them only what they could carry. Among many ordinary Ugandans, the move proved popular. There was widespread looting, and Amin handed over the Asians' property and businesses to his cronies.
He sent away the Asians, who were the backbone of the economy. And during that period, all the industries came to a halt, all the social services disintegrated, the schools went rotten, so is the hospitals, so nothing was left for Uganda.
Of course, there are people who believe he did us a favor in that the Ugandan entrepreneurs, the local entrepreneurs now came up because they chased the Asians, and most of the other foreigners also left. So business was now open for the Ugandans to take over. But they were not really ready for it at that point in time. If it was now, it would have been different. At that point in time, we were not ready. We were not business people.
Do we see him as a monster? Yeah, after a point he was monstrous towards us also. He was very, very frightening to be near. He was frightening to be near.
Originally pro-West, Amin had by now swapped political allegiances and was being backed by Libya's Colonel Gaddafi. A convert to the Muslim faith, he declared Uganda an Islamic state and set aside land for the Kampala mosque that Gaddafi later financed. Meanwhile, he wasted no chance to deride the country's former colonial master, Britain.
There's a cocktail party at one of our major hotels, and Amin has arranged, one of his publicity stunts to get a group of British businessmen in Uganda to basically carry him shoulder high and declare him the conqueror of the British Empire. So this is Iddi Amin trying to posture like, you colonize us, but now you carry me aloft. Now I'm basically your master. The tables have been turned.
The flamboyant Amin seemingly revelled in publicity. He's said to have been irked when the Central African Republic's president, Jean Bedel Bokassa, paid a visit and literally outshone him.
When Bokassa came here, the whole chest was full of medals, quite a heavy load for him. Amin also thought that was a good idea and also started the same.
In ensuing years, Amin bestowed upon himself numerous fake medals and titles. He declared himself lord of all beasts of the earth and fishes of the seas, as well as the King of Scotland. Actions like these caused Amin to be portrayed as a buffoon and a clown in the West. But back home, his regime was no laughing matter.
Our parents would hear them in their conversation talk about people disappearing, talk about people being killed. But we are young, we couldn't understand some of the things. But again, this was further compounded by what we also started witnessing in school, when some children will not turn up and just you hear either their parents have fled or their parents have disappeared.
You say there's no opposition to your rule in this country at the moment. Many people abroad would say that that is because most of your opponents have been removed or have fled.
No, I think you should not listen too much what exile are telling you. You shouldn't. If you want, you come direct to Uganda and get your representative in Kampala so that he can give you accurate information. But I wanted to ask you, are you not afraid of interviewing the conqueror of British Empire as you are British? You are not afraid of...
Among the most notorious elements of Idi Amin's rule was the State Research Bureau.
The State Research Bureau is remembered for torture. They had their torture chambers somewhere near the presidential lodge in Nakasero. Nakasero is one of the suburbs of Kampala. And there they tortured and killed many people. It is said, from the accounts I've read, at the fall of Amin, the walls in the State Research Bureau head office were all blood-stained.
We are going to see Idi Amin's torture chambers now. They are quite touching. You might feel bad about it, of course, but the thing is, everybody has heard about Amin in life.
Today, Idi Amin's torture chambers are on the Kampala tourist trail.
So it also had another metallic sliding door outside, just here on the gate. Then just inside there, it also had metallic sliding doors on all sides. And then prisoners could also die of electrocution.
Thank you.
The number one site on our tour is Idi Amin's torture chambers. Of course, if I talk about torture chambers, you feel you're hearing something like darkness, dark past. But many people in the Western world and many people from many other countries have also been hearing a lot about Amin. So however bad it is, however touching it might be, still people want to see it and they find it interesting.
Just being in here with seeing how like damp and dark and scary it is, it's definitely shocking to see what went on here. It makes me think that Idi Amin was just a brutal, sadistic dictator.
When you say dark side, you know, I presume you're meaning all this murderous person and that. For me, murderous, if I look at a horror movie and I see the guy going with all, you know, full of blood on him and all this kind of thing, and I'm like, but that wasn't my father. I never saw that kind of person. I remember an angry man over a particular issue happening. Yes, I've seen that. And even us, we would get scared. We'd get out of his way, you know. Something is wrong and he's angry about this and that. And that is the utmost of you know, of a dark person I've seen is someone getting angry.
Photo documentary evidence, however, testifies to the extent of the killing and torture that took place during Idi Amin's rule. Prominent people were among the dead, but there were also thousands of ordinary Ugandans. During regular purges of the army, soldiers perceived to support Milton Obote were executed. Others were killed for their money, property, or women. Images like these were unseen in Uganda at the time, but published in other parts of the world they provoked outrage, but also fascination for the man who'd become known as the Butcher of Uganda.
Behind all of this was this general myth or rumor or perception that Amin had a mental problem. There's so many reports about he having supposedly contracted syphilis as a young man. So there was always this question of, is this madness? Is this his brutal nature? Is that syphilis? Is he normal? Is he crazy?
Amin's alleged interest in witchcraft and blood rites added to the intrigue.
His solutions were through witch doctors, and you can imagine the kind of message they must have been giving him.
Amin spoke quite casual about testing blood. It was not to me directly, but we were in cabinet meetings and was when anything that would give him a sense of bigness, and he would say it.
Why Amin acted as he did remains a mystery, but there are many theories.
The more he felt insecure, the more ruthless he became. The more he felt insecure, he would definitely want to do things that he wouldn't have done otherwise.
He didn't even not have any idea of how to run a government. I pointed out that he was of humble education. He hadn't studied a lot. So that in itself, the inferiority complex, could have even made him to become brutal. Because how do you deal with people who are educated, yet you are not educated?
People say he was good in the beginning because they say with time he just started losing control over his army, and also he fell out with many people, and he started also being very desperate.
One death struck at the very heart of Iddi Amin's family itself. It was that of his third wife, Kay, Hussein Jaruga's mother.
I think it is a very tragic event. I even personally have difficulty getting to grips with it. I remember her, she was a very bright person. She was a very loving mother. She not only to us, her children, but to also other children.
Kay's mutilated body was discovered in August 1974. She was aged around 30.
I hadn't known about the conflict she had been having with my father at the time.
The circumstances surrounding Kay's death remain a mystery. Perhaps inevitably, Amin's notoriety led to the finger being pointed at him.
I had my discussions with him on it, and honestly, I really made my peace with my father on the issue of my mother. Yeah, I made peace with him on that, and he's clean.
By the mid-1970s, there had been at least 2 attempts on Iddi Amin's life, and it's said he was obsessed by the threat of a counterattack by Milton Obote. Then, in July 1976, came a humiliation that has been immortalised in films and books. In a daring air raid, Israeli commandos rescued hostages from a hijacked plane Amin had allowed to land at Entebbe airport. The hijackers were pro-Palestinian militants. The Israelis also killed the hijackers and destroyed a quarter of Uganda's fighter planes.
The raid of Entebbe exposed that Amin had no army. It was a weak regime. Amin had the ability to make the world fear by talking. But in real sense, there was no army.
I can confirm that it was very devastating. After that raid, he never recovered his authority.
So what capability does your Air Force have now?
I can't tell you any secrecy because you might pass this information to South Africa, which I am actually aiming to destroy Johannesburg and Cape Town. This is my aim. I'm very serious about this.
By 1978, Ugandan soldiers were mutinying and fleeing across the border to neighbouring Tanzania. Iddi Amin sent in troops, Tanzania launched a counterattack, and in April 1979, Kampala fell.
If you catch Iddi Amin, what are you going to do with it?
We are going to eat his flesh.
In fact, we want his head in Tanzania, his head.
We'll put him in a museum if it's possible.
But Iddi Amin was not captured. He fled first to Libya and then to Saudi Arabia. Here, he and family members were given a home in Jeddah.
It was this retirement that he really needed from all this high-octane life of action man, media attention, war. Then finally, you have this so peaceful, normal life. He used to tell us, this is what I want the most. I want to be able to drive my own car without this bodyguard and go to the supermarket or to the hotel to have, he liked Turkish coffee, to have his Turkish coffee, or have a meeting with an old friend, or, you know, he kept himself fit really up to the end. He liked going swimming particularly.
In 1980, a BBC television crew tracked Amin down. In the meantime, his worst fears had been realised. His archenemy, Milton Obote, had become Uganda's president once more.
You know what Obote said last week? I heard him say it. He said that Iddi Amin Dada should be brought back to Uganda in chains. That's what he said at that rally.
Yes, but he knows that I am very popular. Obote is against any leader popular in Uganda because he is unpopular.
Even in exile, Iddi Amin remained in the limelight. 1981 saw the release of the first of a number of feature films based on his life.
I need at least $1 million for intelligence mission immediately.
The film, which portrays the former president as a brute and a tyrant, was a popular success in many parts of the world.
We're simply out of foreign currency.
Well, print more.
A copy even reached Iddi Amin himself in Jeddah.
Suddenly I received a call from my production manager in London. He said, "Sheldon, you can't believe, something, Iddi Amin have called here, right, and he has congratulated you for making the film." Right? He said it was first-class film. That's what he said. He was only interested in publicity, whichever way he gets it. Whether it's bad publicity or good publicity, it never bothered him. Never bothered him.
Iddi Amin remained in exile until his death in August 2003. He was in his late 70s and had been in hospital for some time. Today, Uganda is one of the world's fastest growing economies. There are no monuments here to commemorate Iddi Amin, no statues and no plaques. Yet, on the streets of Kampala, his name is far from forgotten.
The bad thing about Iddi Amin, he was a dictator and he didn't respect human rights.
Iddi Amin was a man who loved his country. He was a patriotic leader.
Now every Ugandan is now beginning to remember him, to see as the best president ever this country will ever get.
He used to kill people, that man. Whoever could come against him, he would just kill.
The verdict of the rest of the world, however, is less ambiguous.
He damaged Uganda's image. So much so that even in some parts of the world where you go, when you tell them Uganda, they say, "Oh, that country of Iddi Amin." Nearly the whole world got to know that there was a brutal dictator in Uganda.
Well, he made us famous for the wrong reasons. Everybody have been promoting investment for the last 11 years, and the only thing some people knew about Uganda, everybody I can say knew about Iddi Amin.
Murder, mysterious deaths, an African tyrant standing up to Western powers, bodies being thrown down into the River Nile, the world's longest river. The whole cocktail just basically meant that Amin would become that unforgettable person.
Unforgettable, yes, but Uganda is moving on. And this stretch of the Nile, where children once feared to walk, is now a place to relax and have fun.